Blake, have you ever been offered free candy to run for office?
No, but you offered me candy to do gear runs.
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech director out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, a man who was taught to never accept candy from strangers, and I'm here with a boss who loves giving candy to people like your sweet, sweet grandma gives you hard candy when you visit. Toby Walters.
Is it your sweet grandma gives you hard candy when you visit Toby Walters?
Yes. Also, you have to say, Grandma, I've made a visit to Toby Walters, and she says, oh, good, Sonny, here's some candy.
This is getting strange real quick. So let's shift gears to a story that's not strange at all.
When you walked in this morning, you said, I'm telling this story. Oh, no. So I don't know what's about to happen.
So rewind to high school days, and let's see what high school Toby was like. So, as you know, in every high school, I assume in private high schools, but also, certainly in public high schools, you have student government. And you have lots of different positions. You have president and vice president, usually like a treasurer, secretary, and then at least at my high school, we had all these commissioners. And there was like, trying to remember some of them, like commissioner of like
break
assemblies,
time, lunch.
Yeah, commissioner of student involvement, whatever. And so there was also this thing called a convention, just like the Republican or Democratic National Convention.
Were you a fascist or an authoritarianism?
I didn't know those words back in
communist.
High school. I wanted candy. And so at this convention, you would get out of school for the day. You'd go to the convention and you get to bring 3 of your friends and you get a bunch of free candy. And so me and my friends, we were not super popular. I know that's confusing for you, Blake, because you know me as like the coolest guy you've ever met.
I'm very shook.
But we thought to ourselves, okay, how can we get into this convention so we can get out of school and get free candy?
Are you sure this isn't like 4th grade, Toby?
No, this is straight up like junior year of high school.
Okay.
And so we're scheming and we're trying to figure out, like, can we get on somebody's team? Can we be somebody's? And we're like, well, we don't really run with the popular kids, so how can we like get on one of their teams? And we decided, okay, one of us is going to have to actually like run for office, and then the others of us get to go with as the like election team. So I'm not exaggerating this story. I'm not lying to you, Blake. We drew straws, and I lost.
So you won.
So I lost I won the opportunity to run for office. And so I was like, all right, you know me, Blake. I have no shame. So
100%.
Like,
that's why I'm surprised you drew for straws.
Yeah. So like, no problem. I'll do this. And so I looked at all the available options, and I was like, what's the dumbest one that I could run for? And it was Commissioner of Clean Campus.
So is this just like you're the janitor assistant?
I'm like the rallying member of, what this office is like how to like create initiative and involvement among the students to help keep the campus clean and have pride in it. And I'm like, yeah, I don't have to do anything around that. So let's try that one. And I was running against a really popular girl. So I was like, oh, well, this will be no problem because obviously she's going to get elected and I'm just going to get out of school for a day and get free candy like I want. So fast forward to the convention. They hold it in the gym and they set it all up with like tables and lights and hazers. I'm sure they rented some gear from Church Gear, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because we existed when I was a junior in high school. And they would have speeches or skits. You could do a speech or you could do a skit. And I was like, well, let's do a skit because that sounds fun. Now, growing up in youth group, Blake, there were always skits floating about in the 90s. Did you do skits in?
I watched the skit guys.
Yeah, in youth group?
Yep.
Okay. Were you ever involved in those?
Nope.
Or no. Okay.
Not attractive enough to be on stage.
So for me, I was like, I always enjoyed that stuff, like get up on stage, act goofy. And so my buddies and I are talking, and we're like, what skit can we do? And there was this one that had gone through the youth group for years. Like the youth group leaders would do it every so often for like the last 10 or 15 years. And it was legendary amongst our youth group. It was called the Iron Gut.
Okay.
So I'm going to warn you, it's disgusting, but it's an incredible story. So there are 4 of us, and we go up to the stage one at a time. So the first person goes up, and on the stage there is a toothbrush, toothpaste, and a glass of water. So the person goes up and pretends that he's just waking up, kind of like makes a show of it, stretches, yawns, grabs a toothbrush, brushes his teeth, very normal. And then he takes a glass of water, drinks some, swishes, spits it back in the cup.
Okay. I know where this is going.
And so, do this 3 times with 3 guys. And then at the end, I come up and I'm pretending again, I'm waking up. And all of a sudden, I am aware that there is an audience in this skit. And so I look out and I'm like, what's going on here? Like, what is everybody doing here? And I look out and everybody's got, a soda or a Gatorade or whatever that they're drinking. And so I, make this kind of joke of like, how come you all have drinks? And oh, here it is. And you could just hear the crowd start to be like, oh, no, no, no. And Blake, I drink that entire glass of all sorts of mixture.
Human DNA.
And I hold it down. I definitely felt, the reflexes coming. I hold it down and I set that cup down and I said, vote for me. I'll clean up any mess. And it didn't turn in. You saw Stand By Me.
Yeah.
It didn't turn into that where nobody threw up, but obviously everybody was like, that was disgusting. And Blake,
did you win?
I won.
Did you deeply regret winning?
Well, kind of. I felt so bad for the girl that was running against me because she really wanted it and I didn't at all. And then I got elected. And so the hilarious part is about 2 months in, there was student representatives from each class that would come once a month and they would gather to give just student feedback to the student government. And so 2 months in, somebody raises a point and says, can we impeach that stupid commissioner of Clean Campus? He doesn't do anything around here. I kid you not. The student body tried to impeach me, but they couldn't get it through.
Couldn't get enough votes, huh? You should have just been going around campus eating garbage, You said you clean up any mess.
I mean, that could have been the play. But I'm worried about the day when you and all the rest of the employees at Church Gear try and impeach me.
We overthrow you?
Yeah.
Well, that's why you have me here. I'm your spy on the inside to make sure nobody ends
Will
up.
you drink the...
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Whatever you need, boss. Now let's bring in somebody that definitely would have downed all that spit as well. The North Point Ministries technical director, Brendon Petty. Brendon, how would you have crushed that bottle of disgusting spit saliva?
I don't know about that, guys. That doesn't sound appetizing at all.
Have you ever run for office? Did you have to, get voters to get you into North Point? Or
No, never had to do that. I was never big on the popularity contests and seeing, how silly I could be.
I just wanted the candy. I don't even want to be popular.
What if, chugging...
I don't like candy that much.
What if chugging that bottle of spit quadrupled your production budget for the rest of your years at North Point?
Ooh, now
just one cup of spit.
I don't know, man. I could, yeah. There might be a threshold there. I don't know what it would be though.
Everybody has a number. All right, so let's get to these 5 truths and a lie. So, first one, received first TV credit in 2001. Secondly,
I wonder if he's on IMDb.
Oh, you should check that while I read the next 5.
No, let's cheat.
Started in church tech, running lyrics with crossfade dual slide projectors.
Do you know what a slide projector is, Blake?
I just want a pat on the back that I said all that correctly. No.
We'll talk about that.
All right, number 3. I sold an Allen & Heath audio console to buy an engagement ring. Toby, I didn't know they sold engagement rings for $200 because that's about...
It depends on the Allen & Heath you're selling.
Well, that's true. We just did sell an Avantis.
And that totally sounds like something I would have done. I'm trying to literally think if I sold gear in order to pay for my wife's engagement ring.
Well, and now you can get these things are all the rage. These diamonds that look like diamonds, but they're not, and they're like $100. I don't know why.
Cubic zirconias?
Yeah, we should all do that.
That's been a thing for a long time.
Number 4, robbed at gunpoint by a pregnant woman. Toby, where was Shelly a couple years ago?
Well, I'm wondering if that's his wife when she was pregnant. Because, Blake, your wife has never been pregnant, but they
allegedly
get a little crazy.
They do. Okay.
It's scary.
Well, we just got canceled. Number 5, Considered the North Point Ministries pro presenter expert. Number 6, coming in like very many other tech directors in this section, studied to be an architect. Okay.
Are you saying that other tech directors have
Yes.
been architects or just studied to be something completely different?
I don't know if they studied it or not, but like I feel like we get this a lot. That is an alternative job.
Okay. Well, Brendon, please explain to our young Blakey here, what is a slide projector?
Yeah, slide projector, man. Back in the 80s, people would, put photos like on 35 millimeter transparent slides. And, you'd show your friends and family your vacation photos, right? And so that's what, right?
Yeah.
There's like,
It's a clicker. You click it and it like it goes to the next picture. Yeah.
So
That's
back
right.
in the 80s when Bill Murray didn't look like a walking corpse. He looks rough now. Okay.
And I'm trying to think if I swear that I have seen slide projectors on churches' lists when they send us like their gear list. And, every time I say no to a church, I just feel like it's like a tiny little stab in my heart. But I'm looking at a slide projector and I'm like, yeah, you just need to let that thing, you need to let it go.
Toby, when you were sick the other day and I was doing the offer sheets, I gave someone 10 grand for that. Was that too much?
You're fired.
All right. That's the first one here. I'm going to hope with all my heart that he was robbed at gunpoint, and I'm going to say that he did not study to be an architect. Maybe he stole that from previous guests listening. So Toby, what's your guess?
See, I'm going to go, so my gut says that for him being the pro presenter expert, like that seems so obvious that he's considered like the video guy at North Point. And so it could kind of be this funny thing where it's like, oh, you ask a pro presenter question. Well, don't ask Brendon because he didn't know anything about it.
All right, we're locked in, Brendon. Which is it?
Yeah, we have a winner there, Toby. That is exactly the truth.
Blake, how often
I
do you
have
hear that?
no idea how to run Pro Presenter.
Blake
Or
doesn't
do it
either.
well, really.
Actually,
Brendon-
I have no idea there. But
Brendon, you let me down. You let me down.
Sorry.
Tell me, you didn't let me down though with this one. Tell me about getting robbed at gunpoint by a pregnant woman.
was that your wife?
No, it wasn't my wife. This was back. I think I worked at a bank there in college, and just one random afternoon, a lady walks into the bank with a 45, holds it up over the counter, and asks for all the money in our drawers. And so,
and you gave it to
we
her?
gave it to her. I gave it to her.
How much was in there?
Man, 10, probably more than 10,000. I mean, it wasn't like tons of cash, but sure, it was something significant.
So crime did literally pay. And
Oh my
she was
gosh.
like, she was noticeably pregnant.
Is the baby an
Yeah,
accessory in the
definitely
crime?
pregnant.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And
Yeah, I don't
how
know.
did that story end? They catch her or what?
Yes. In fact, it was probably less than an hour later. She not walked across the street. She went to another banking center and tried to pay off a loan with the cash.
no, you
Yeah.
have to wait for the
So-
heat to die down.
I mean, I almost feel a little bad in that she was stealing the money for a good reason. She was trying to pay off her debts.
I think she
Yeah.
saw the movie Hell or High Water and was like, I'm going to
Hmm.
do exactly that because that's literally the plot of that movie.
That is a great movie.
One of the best, honestly. True story. My father-in-law is the regional vice president of a bank in West Tennessee, and they had someone come in there and they were getting all mad because they had tried to put their money in the deposit box outside. And this is a real thing. Like the slit is kind of confusing. There's a couple, and my dad has actually put it in the wrong one. And so I've seen this happen. Well, they're like, sorry, sir, like this, we have a process for this. It's going to take a couple days. And he's like, well, I'm going to call the law. I'm going to call the law on y'all. And they're like, all right, call the law. And so police show up, arrest him, take him away. And they're like, this guy had warrants. So thank you for this guy got himself arrested in a bank.
Did he forget that he was wanted?
You know, I'm not going to say anything else. You know, you never know what someone's going through, but let's just say
That's got to be on America's Dumbest Criminals.
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
All right. So tell us about selling an Allen and Heath audio console to buy an engagement ring. And are you married to the girl that
yeah.
you bought this engagement ring for?
I am indeed married to
done.
the same girl. Yeah. I simple story, fell in love, needed cash, didn't need the console. So yeah, put it up for sale.
I feel
Buy
like
the
you
ring.
just described like a Hollywood movie. Fell in love, needed cash, so now he's taking one last job.
And after having been married for however many years, do you miss that Allen and Heath console? Or was
Not
the sacrifice
all.
worth it?
Oh, it was, yeah, the sacrifice was definitely worth it.
And
I wouldn't call it a sacrifice.
Your wife is actually in this room. She's listening right now. So
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
don't say anything wrong. Okay, pro presenter. So you apparently are not the expert.
No, I mean, I could set up the computer, get the outputs going and stuff. But like when it comes to like in a show, gathering content, trying to pull something off quickly, I'm not your guy.
I'm not your guy.
Definitely not
Something
your
I say
guy.
often around here, particularly when they're trying to, what's it called?
Rob you at gunpoint?
Arrest me for stealing from a bank. I've joked many a time. I'm like, why don't we just steal from your father's bank? Like, well, he won't turn us in. All right, Brendon. So when you're not stealing banks, we hear you're working at North Point. So tell us, how did you get started at North Point? What's the, North Point was kind of the pioneer in live streaming. So when COVID hit, were you phased, or was it like, well, we've already got this ready? So what was that like, and what's it like at North Point?
Sure. Well, I think the short answer, how I got here, was cold resume, honestly. I was working in production in Nashville out of school, and my wife and I came down for a visit to North Point while we were in Atlanta, and we were just blown away by the experience here and, how services were orchestrated and the level at which they were, executing programming. And so about a year later, we were kind of at a crossroads and thinking about having kids and looking for the next adventure. And in part of that conversation, my wife urged me to send my resume to North Point. She's like, if you want to work in production, you've grown up in the church, like this is the thing. Why don't you put the two together and make it your job? And I guess I reluctantly agreed, and then, but didn't figure it would go anywhere. And then, man, it was like 48 hours. It didn't take long. They called back and said, "How did you know there was a position open?" I was like, "I didn't." And the rest is history. So
you just were like, I want to work at North Point, sent an application in, didn't know there was a job opening.
Right. Didn't know.
And it's kind of funny that if you did that now, you'd pretty much be guaranteed there will be a job opening.
Because everybody's got job openings right now in production.
Oh,
yeah. Right.
If we could just sell production people instead of gear, we'd make tons more money.
Slavery is not allowed anymore, Blake.
You
can't sell human beings.
Here's a crazy thought. Tennessee had an amendment to vote slavery out of our Constitution. In this past election cycle, 20% voted to keep it in. Welcome to Tennessee. But going back to that, also, that's what Slingshot does. They sell production people. That's what I meant. Like, I didn't mean literally, Toby.
Maybe we should clarify a little bit. Slingshot helps find candidates, match candidates with churches doing searches. They don't sell human beings.
They totally sell. Come on. In the sense of like, what do they provide for a church? They provide them a production person. Like, I don't mean this in a weird way.
Brendon, do you see what I have to deal with on a daily basis here? So, Brendon, I know that North Point is kind of considered the pioneer in, if live streaming is the right way to say it, but like the multi-site, like send the video feed out to different campuses. Can you kind of talk to us about that history there and how that got started?
Yeah, sure. A while back, I mean, when I came to North Point, it was almost like 18 years ago, and they were already doing multi-site. So we had our central campus, and then there was a south campus that opened up. And so I kind of just started to learn about that as everyone on staff already, was kind of forging the way with technology, and got to be a part of that. It's really just grown from there. Like, always looking for the next, technology to help us, achieve an objective, whatever it may be programming wise. So as those campuses grew, as the need for campuses grew, we just had to continually add gear and figure out better ways, more efficient ways to scale the systems.
So when COVID hit, were you guys phased at all? Or did the increased importance on streaming force you all to make some changes and improvements to this already like existing system?
Yeah, well, yes and no. I mean, yes, we had the infrastructure to support like a large online audience, but we still had to shift our focus a bit. Like, without a crowd in the room was one thing I remember. Like, we couldn't take the wide shots that we would normally take from before. And then at some point, we also realized we didn't need IMAG screens. Like, there's nobody in the room to look at the screen, so why do we have the IMAG on? And the same was true for the PA. So what we ended up doing is kind of consolidating the space and converted the auditorium basically into a soundstage. And without all the seats in the room, we were able to experiment with like new camera positions and things that were otherwise unattainable. So at the end, we kind of had like 100 foot of dolly track all laid out through the room, and we put the jib right up close.
And then
And
when North Point brought people back into the room, what things how is it different now than it was before COVID? Because you guys totally changed things up. So what were you able to keep? What did you shift?
right. Well, the challenge certainly was that we really enjoyed all those positions, like the new angles and things were great, but we had to, remove a lot of that. For us, I think the biggest thing that we kept was we did get to keep the dolly. So we kept a certain section of dolly track, but we also, during that time, fine-tuned lighting. And so we were really concentrated on how do we make cameras look good, for an audience outside the room. And so we kept a lot of that great lighting. We also wanted to work on keeping both an IMAG cut and a broadcast cut simultaneously. And so I think what we've been working through, at least in the last, I guess, year or so, has been figuring out how to do that, what I call a double cut with one individual. So one director, some, predictable recalls on the switcher to help, with taking a close-up camera in the IMAG while we put something wider online. So working through that with all of our directors.
And for lighting, was it kind of like you did one lighting, feel pre-COVID, and then you completely switched, like you're just lighting for live stream at that point? And now, is it kind of a balance between the two? Are you approaching lighting differently completely now?
Yeah, I think lighting was always important, and how we did it. It's just when we saw the finer points of how to do that for a camera, we're like, oh, we can still do these things even though there are people in the room, right? It was like I would say like a maturity of how we go about lighting, right? You don't know what you don't know, and then something like COVID happens, and you learn new ways to do things. So
was it weird? I've never asked anyone this. Was it weird when COVID hit to just have nobody in the sanctuary? Like, was it hard for the worship team to, I don't know, like feel the emotion when you don't have everyone singing with you, and for the pastor to have no nodding heads? Like all nonverbal communication was gone.
Yeah, I'm not a dude who usually dons the stage much. I would think so. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it was tough.
Or were you just like, this is great, nobody told me to turn it down?
I think right. I think we kind of saw that a little bit. I mean, and some of that is why we moved cameras around too, to just kind of give that feel, that, you don't want to necessarily sing to a camera, right? Like that's kind of odd. So.
Okay, I want to shift gears a little bit. I've been to a lot of churches in the last couple of years, just doing site visits and meeting the tech crew and just seeing their operations. And North Point has been one of my favorite, honestly, for a lot of reasons. But I want to talk about one specifically with you. There are certain cultures at churches where they have almost a celebrity pastor. And it's like that pastor has security that walks with him. That pastor has private green rooms, and that pastor is kept separated and whatnot.
Kind of like how we treat Toby here.
Yes, as I should be. But I feel like you guys really were animate about, Andy is, he is who he is. He's Andy Stanley, and he's, God has used in such powerful ways. But he's also he's with us, and he's it didn't feel like this big disconnect. So can you talk about just the health of that relationship between the staff and the culture, and how you as a production staff get to work alongside him and share that vision?
Sure. Well, I can talk about that from my experience. I mean, for me, Andy's the real deal. Like what he says on stage and the principles he talks about, we live out every day. Especially on staff, like throughout the day, throughout a work week. And all of that really flows from the top, like healthy relationships around here, that all flows from the top. I mean, our leaders set a really good example of that for us. And so everyone's approachable, everyone enjoys spending time and, let's say intermingling with, all the staff as we're together in the hallways or where we are. I don't have a lot of face-to-face time with Andy, but when I do see him, I mean, it's, if I wanted to bring up, something or ask a question, that wouldn't be out of the ordinary.
Yeah, I love that. Do you have any advice for churches that maybe don't have that healthy connection, just like an easy place to start? Knowing people's names on staff.
I don't know how, I don't know how easy that is to lead up, right? Like, no magic pill. I mean, really, a culture of any place is really determined by the leaders. And I think that you can, as a leader wherever you are in the organization, so if it's over volunteers only, or maybe you're managing a small staff, I mean, you can create that kind of culture for yourself, and for you, like as people, as they're interacting with you, how easy are you to interact with, and how much do you separate yourself or isolate yourself, both in behavior and in your heart. So, I mean, I think my suggestion would be to just work on that for yourself and just be a good example in the areas you can have influence over.
And would you say that relationship with your pastor is kind of what's helped you have longevity in the tech world, which we, don't see all that often?
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, for me, I was raised a preacher's kid, so I spent a lot of time in the church. And for me, what's funny is we talked about, North Point coming to work here. Like there was at one point in my life, I swore off ever working in the ministry. And it just had a lot to do with how I saw church leadership behave, as I grew up as a kid. And, but here at North Point, I think what the draw to this place was the leadership. The draw to this place for me was, what I read in books, and, it's a great place to work. And, we all are human beings. It's not always hugs and high fives around here, but, we certainly work on that. And, there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of layers to why I might have stuck around for so long. But I think certainly it's that leadership culture, always growing us as individuals. I think North Point is interested in my growth and my development as a leader, and they do things. We have a staff culture team that helps us if we need one-on-one coaching, and there's even classes and things we can go to just improve our leadership.
And how long have you and some of the key production staff been there?
Oh, I mean, they're on our team. So I work on a central team. We're on a support team. And those of us on that team, pretty tight-knit group. There's a few of us who have been here probably that 16, 17, 18 year mark. And we kind of all started around that same time. And I just think that we just have a great team dynamic for our team. It's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun. We like to eat tacos together.
That's the key to a healthy culture, I think, is eating tacos.
It is. I do. I think it is. And at some level, yeah, we do enjoy working with technology and tools and things to sorry, lost my train of thought. I'm going to start over.
Cool.
So what was that?
Go again.
Where were we? Sorry.
You could talk about, I just asked, how long have you and some of the key production staff been
right.
there?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a few of us who've been here a little while, and I think that it has a lot to do with our team dynamic. We like to have a lot of fun together. We get to work on a team that's, always, it seems like we have new initiatives. And I think that has to do with our size, but also, we get to try things out. And if it doesn't work, we go a different direction. So we have some room to fail. And then sometimes we get it right.
And you've been there 15 plus years?
Yeah. 18 going on 19.
Golly. And isn't there at least two others that have been there almost as long?
Yeah. Yeah. My manager and another guy on our team.
Blake, I feel like we should do, if we're doing awards at the end of the year, we find the tech that listens to the podcast that's been at their church the longest, and
I like that a lot.
Longevity Award. We went to visit Church of the City in Franklin a couple weeks ago, and one of their guys has been there 22 years, and I feel like that's the longest I've heard so far.
I didn't know Church of the City's been around that long.
Well,
I thought it was like a new hip church.
It moved into a church that has been around for like over 100 years.
So it ate a church.
Well, they combined and became Church of the City together, but that guy had been at the old church and then stayed, and that was a really fun story of unity there. Brendon, going back to the fact that I got to visit you guys, so I got a site tour. I've got a couple of them now, which is super fun. You guys are actually probably the best at doing it. It feels like you've done a lot of site tours. But so for me, I'm walking in and you show me the I guess the main auditorium at the Alpharetta campus, and then you walk me back into Video World, and I feel like I'm on the set of Newsroom or CNN or something. What is it, like 21 server racks back there? What in the world is going on back there?
Sure. Well, I mean, it's a lot here. You toured the central campus, so we're really kind of the hub for connecting all the locations, whether it be over fiber or some managed networks. And there's a lot of signals that come in that we watch in our central operations center. And so I should probably back up a little bit and kind of explain that our team is responsible for capturing and delivering like the primary message content on Sunday. So every campus does their own thing when it comes to like worship, audience engagement, host segments, things like that. But when it comes to the message, we're responsible for making sure that it gets there, that it's high quality, and that everything works. And so we sit in that central room really to watch what's going on a Sunday and be ready for any issues that might arise, even at a local campus. Let's say I'm coming up with an example of like a projector goes out or something. We help walk the local tech staff there through something.
Oh, so you almost are kind of playing a customer support role then, like troubleshooting stuff when you're not even physically there.
Yeah, absolutely. Our team is more project based. So during the week, we're working on, upgrading and maintaining systems. And then on Sunday, the execution is really to make sure that the message gets out and that we're there to help the other campuses.
Let's go back to the longevity in tech just one more time. What kind of wisdom and advice would you give to other, church techs that are in a tough spot and they're trying to decide if they're going to stay or they're going to go, or if they're trying to, build a culture on an island a little bit? Like, it's so, like, your story is so great and encouraging because it's coming from the top. It's going great. What do you do though when you want to have longevity somewhere, but it kind of feels like you're getting edged out?
Man, I don't know. I think it's really important to always keep work-life balance. It's kind of regular. I hear all the time stories about burnout and just working, far too much. And one of the things we have, it's a principle around here called choosing to cheat. And it's basically about choosing how we divide our hours in the day, between sleep, exercise, work, family. And often you feel like there's not enough time. You got to cheat somewhere. And if that's the case, we're encouraged to cheat at work. And so I think that's been a real freeing principle, and one that I think that has placed a lot of value, on my time and the things that I do in my life other than work here. And so anyway, to bring it all back around, I do think you got to stand strong in that work-life balance. And
I choose to cheat all the time. It's my cheat meal, which is every meal.
Yeah, I was thinking, you and I choose to cheat the workout. We're like, nah, I could skip that.
I'm going to skip the workout, and then I'm going to have a cheat day. So I'll cheat the workout, cheat the meal.
But no, that's a great way to look at it, is like, you only have a certain amount of hours in the day. And if your family life suffers, everything's going to suffer. If your health suffers, everything is going to suffer. And so, yeah, if you're down to, you've got to just simply go home at some point and call it good enough and build up those healthy things so that, eventually we burn out because we don't do those things that build the health outside of work. And so we fail, we shut down, we overwhelm. No, I think that's great.
So many, I think, church techs, because you guys are like as the more I get to know all of y'all, they're the most hardworking people ever. And I feel like a lot of times you have nothing left to pour out because so many people are just forever holding their bucket upside down. Well, you got to go refill it to pour into others. You don't have anything left, and now it's just that little arm on the bucket that's clanging against the outside of the bucket, making a bunch of noise. Which really, that's the analogy for like the pain you're experiencing. So,
and we're in a season right now where tech directors are trying to choose to cheat, but it's Christmas time. Tell us about Christmas at North Point. Is it as crazy as some of the other churches out there doing like 17 services in a week? And
oh yeah, we have lots of services, especially across like 8 campuses. Christmas has been pretty interesting, probably the past few years. I think because of COVID, but also because all 8 campuses can operate more autonomously sometimes. And Christmas season is like one of those seasons where everybody kind of does their own local programming. And Sunday mornings are similar to a normal Sunday mornings. Of course, they get the trimmings of like holiday spirit, and they might include like an extended audience engagement segment. And, I think our job, at least from my perspective and my team, is again to support those campuses and what they're doing. So they might come up with an idea and they're like, hey, this really cool thing we want to do. And how do we get that done? And our team's there to help kind of pave the way for that and help them. The one thing I've enjoyed during Christmas most recently, and this did come from COVID, was more outdoor events. I think that especially at North Point, or rather our Alpharetta campus, we got a big lawn out front, a large parking lot. And so we've started doing a number of events. And one thing that has stuck is a giant Christmas event, a program where we have a giant LED tree that, dances, to music and different things. And people come and there's a concert around that. And everyone brings like blankets and lawn chairs, and we pray for good weather.
Yeah.
And
you are in the South, so that helps.
Yeah, I know. Well, it is the South, but there's rain and such. And so anyway, they do it up with a Christmas market, and there's food, sometimes trucks, food trucks, and warm drinks like coffee and hot cocoa. And it's a good time. Now that probably runs like 4 nights in a row, 2 services a night. So it's still a lot. And I know a lot of our tech team, we try to divide it up. So I actually, because I'm on a team that's the central support team, but I attend North Point. Like I call that my church home. So I'll jump in and volunteer on a night, cover a position or a slot.
So then, does having so many churches in the area, like not church plants, like other locations, does that help cut down on the Christmas services, or you guys have a little less then?
Well, I think we have a lot of,
so many
right,
just through one central church.
Yeah, well, again, because everybody is autonomous, they're really responsible for their own programming. So there's not really like a central programming that says, hey, we're all going to do this. Everybody does something a little bit different. A lot of times the message content might be the same on Sunday mornings, but one campus might do something completely different for Christmas Eve than another. And so usually those services are more, or those events are, more geared towards that specific community. So.
And any just practical tips for our church techs that are looking at Christmas coming up and thinking, well, I do have 17 services and I'm running all 17 of them, and I'm trying not to die, and I'm trying to, remind my kids that I'm still their dad. Like, just any practical tips on just surviving this season.
Yeah, to where they don't have to just die hard, during this time.
Yippee-ki-yay, Blake.
Watch that mouth, Toby.
Breathe is a good one.
My answer is breathe. I just take time, even if it's a little moment, to pause and just, realize that in just a few short weeks, that stress and those things will be gone. And, I really just got to think about the value overall of what you're doing and how that's going to leave you in the end. Right. So I just think it's really important to at least build as much, like personal time in there.
No, totally. It sounds like just a season for sure to be more intentional about how you're feeling.
Yeah, you have to have endurance, and there's only one way to keep up with that, and that's to rest. So
speaking of having endurance, some of the events that take endurance is when everything is going wrong. So before we get to your tech takeaway, I'd love to hear a disaster story, seasonal or not, even if it's not Christmas. Maybe it's Easter, or maybe it's, I don't know, July 21st, whatever happened. I'm sure there's been
Keep reaching there, Blake.
There's been a Sunday on July 21st at some point. Like, you ever had a moment where just everything went wrong?
Man, I wish that I had like some crazy story of like, set pieces falling or trees on fire, but nothing really at Christmas time. I think the one big thing in recent history that was a big fail, I think, was during a conference recently. We invite all the other churches, right, to come see, like, hey, check out what we do. Here's, it's North Point, and this is going to be awesome. And we do a lot of planning and practice for like this big opener. And in this particular one that I remember, there's one individual who walks out on stage and he's in the dark, right? But then there's like this backlight that comes up, and so the backlight's up. It's obviously we're starting, and it's time to hit the cue, and nothing, hit the cue again, nothing. And the tracks that are going to carry us through this whole thing, with lighting and band, is just not happening. And so it took so long that we actually had to cue him to walk back off the stage and turn the light off. And it was like this moment of like, oh, it was obvious something was wrong, and so, just embarrassing.
Who took the
take a
heat
few
for
moments.
that one?
Yeah, right. And so, I wouldn't say it's anybody's fault. It's just stuff happens, right? So that's
Like,
what
I think
remember.
we've had more disaster stories specifically around, and I hit the Q button and nothing happened. Like, this is a reoccurring theme here.
Next time when you have a disaster story and they're like, someone's head has to roll for this, you should just say, oh, we're firing Blake. I would love for all the church techs around America
Yeah.
to just use me as a scapegoat. And like, I bet the pastor, if it's a big enough staff, they don't know every tech guy's name, even though they should. Just tell them.
Blake, you're fired.
You can send me a church shirt with the church name on it and everything. I'll do a little video. It'll be perfect.
You start the hashtag Blake's fired.
Yes. All right.
Brendon, we'd like to take some cues from you on a tech takeaway. Give us something that would be your unique piece of advice. I mean, you got 19 years at North Point. You ought to have something pretty impressive. I'm just saying.
I don't know. I don't know if it's impressive. And I was listening to you, I've listened to you guys' podcasts, and a lot of guys talk about relationships. And man, prioritizing those over any production or task, I think that's huge. And I can agree 100%, right? 150% agree on that. But instead, I thought, I might give you guys something more practical. Something I feel like that at least the folks that I've talked to and the people who come through, might be helpful to them. Especially in light of kind of coming off of COVID. A lot of folks are doing like video more now they're using cameras. And I think a lot of people, they get into video, and there's all kinds of things that go into it, right? Like, it's the combination of lighting and audio and everything together. And so I think that if you don't like the way your cameras look, I think I think everyone should take a good look at lighting. I find that when I see stuff coming, when people share the different content with me, I'm like, hey, yeah, that's great. Or when I go visit a church and help them. And I think instead of like chasing down the next camera or the next frame rate, or the next set of cinematic lenses, like, I think a lot of times we can just concentrate on what we have and just look at the lighting, balance that better. Sometimes I suggest that, you might take a video monitor, and just take the console into a room where all you can see is the video monitor, right? And program your lighting to what the camera sees more than just what's in the room. And then, of course, you go back out and you want to balance that, right? There's still an experience to be had by someone in the audience, but I think that can be, really helpful in, improving the way our images look.
So, Toby, what I'm hearing is whenever something goes wrong, the video guy says it's the lighting guy's fault. Hey, don't look at me. It was L. No, I'm just kidding. The real response there is the video guy and the lighting guy should become buddies, because they can make some magic happen.
Oh, yeah. You got to work together. Absolutely.
Brendon, that's one of my favorite tech takeaways, because that's so darn practical. I've had a lot of philosophical, a lot of relational ones. That's great.
Well, Brendon, we really appreciate you coming on, man. Is there anything you want to plug?
So, one thing I'd like to plug would be our Be Rich campaign. It's a generosity movement that we do every year, where we challenge people to be rich in good deeds. And we support local charities with cash donations and volunteer service during that time. It's really cool. Totals aren't in yet for this year, but like last year, we served about 25,000 hours and raised $8.5 million just between our 8 campuses.
Dang.
And
Gracious.
100%. Yeah, 100% of that is actually given away to the nonprofits. They're vetted nonprofit organizations just within our community. So you can check it all out on berich.org.
I'm so shocked you were able to get the URL berich.org. Like, that's a tough URL game to get.
I don't know how they did it, but they must have somehow.
Well done. All right. Well, Brendon, we really appreciate you coming on the show, man.
Yeah, it's been good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for listening. And hey, congratulations on surviving Sunday. If you happen to make it through next Sunday as well, join us again for your weekly Tech Breather.
Blake, I have a confession to make.
Oh, no. Toby, don't do that on air.
I often wonder, are reindeers actually real?
Well, actually, I think I don't know that they can fly, but supposedly they are real. Seriously.
I don't think they actually fly, but yes, they are real. Like, reindeers are a real thing. You think they're like mythical creatures because they can fly. And like, how many of them were there or are there? Like, how many does Santa have?
I think he has 11 reindeers.
Is Rudolph the 12th or is he the 11th?
I don't think he counts as a reindeer because he's a mutant because he's got the nose thing.
That's true. I mean, we can't necessarily be sure whether it's 11 or 12, but one thing we can be sure of
is the 11% off you can get at churchgear.com if you use code podcast. And this is my salesman voice. Merry Christmas, everybody.